Wimbledon has been stripped of rankings points. G'day and welcome to this Australian Open Live, and it's the Spotlight series, and today we're shining a spotlight on Wimbledon 2022. Wimbledon has been stripped of rankings points. Why did that happen? Well, we're not going to explain it here, but it's definitely impacted the tournament, and our series will be investigating how this came about. And then we're going to go through a different episode. We'll address, we're going to be looking at reviewing the situation, how it came about. We're not getting political or commentating or entering into any sort of speculation one way or the other. We hope this will be a topic of interest coming up over the next couple of weeks, and a few episodes there to whet your appetite for Wimbledon. And as we like to do, presenting some content with a difference, about the players behind the stats, the topics behind the stats, behind the scenes, and just aggregating all this information into one place that you can't get anywhere else. We tell stories, and our story is tennis. We want to introduce you to an upcoming series that's going to play throughout the lead up to Wimbledon and possibly after. Don't go away, we'll be right back. We tell stories, and our story is tennis, and Wimbledon being stripped of rankings points. We're exploring the issues and the player reactions, and in episode 2 we're looking specifically at the reaction of the Aussie players. Now, yes, we are all about the Australian Open, and we in this episode it makes sense to have a look up close at what the reactions of the Aussie players were, because an article that caught our eye. Well, first of all, which players are we looking at? Christopher O'Connell. We previewed his match at the Australian Open 2022. We're going to be taking a look into the comments of John Millman, Ilya Tomiljanovic. So these comments by Christopher O'Connell were really the first that we noticed of players not only commenting on the stripping of points at Wimbledon, but also actually commenting to say that they were really weighing up whether they'd actually play, and coming off the back of 2 COVID-ridden Australian Opens where players were reluctant, were happy to risk even being allowed to play because they either wouldn't get vaccinated or reveal their vaccination status. It struck us as a little bit of a surprise that they would voluntarily walk away from Wimbledon with all the prestige and the prize money on offer. But as we look into their comments, you might be able to understand why. So Chris O'Connell, his comments, weighing up their options. Chris O'Connell, at this point back in May 23, he was saying that he'd be speaking to his coaches about what he was going to do, and he was having to go through qualifying for Wimbledon. He wanted to get into the top 100, but with no points on offer, he actually found that he didn't know what to do next. He, at the time he was competing at Roland Garris, he lost in the first round. He was the world number 124, but he was very honest. He didn't know whether he was going to play, which you can understand it as we thought about this a little bit, thought it through a little bit more thoroughly. Well, yeah, of course, if you're a player in the around top 150 to top 300 or 400 in the world, like you know, you've only got so many resources available, and you've got to think about things like how much gas have you got in the tank, the travel, if you're making the effort to go to travel to a Grand Slam, and you're trying to build up your rankings points, and then all of a sudden that they're not there. But O'Connell said that if he hadn't made Wimbledon his main draw debut last year, it would be a different equation in the current circumstances. And for the moment, we'll leave you with the sights, sounds, summer of Australia, the Australian Open 2022. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Moving on to our next Australian player, and he had plenty to say, John Millman, and he's not backwards in coming forwards, the veteran, and he launched a stinging attack on Wimbledon on May 25, 2022, around about the time that they're all competing at Roland Garris. Millman is actually a member of the ATP Player Council, so he's coming from a pretty informed place, and he was frustrated by the factional fighting that divided the sport. And he said that the saga wouldn't have escalated in the manner it did if Wimbledon had have consulted the players properly. He said there was no contact made until a week after the ban was issued. And he said, I'll be honest and as frank as possible, the Russia-Ukraine conflict is terrible, and his heart aches for the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian players, and he hates all the conflict, but also he said he doesn't like unilateral decisions. And this was an opportunity to have the Russians and the Belarusians play. And he said there were two options, recommendations, not even laws, given by the UK government. Now, what I'm assuming he's referring to there is that possibly there was an option for those players to compete similar to the banned Russian athletes that they competed under the, I think it was called the Russian Federation Players Group or some such thing. You can correct me on that in the comments. But Millman, being a member of the 12-man ATP Players Council, which also features Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal at the moment, he said negotiations were ongoing, and remember this is as of the 25th of May, with other tennis authorities, and they were due to have a hookup that night after he spoke to this particular press outlet. And Millman went into further detail. He stressed that the infighting within tennis must be kept in perspective amid the broader tragedy unfolding in Ukraine. And he'd heard whispers that, it's coming from the government, Wimbledon's actions to ban the players from Belarus and Russia. And Millman saying if it's coming from the government, it's got to be the British government to come out and say, no, we're banning them, we don't want them to play. And he felt sorry for Wimbledon, that they were just possibly being pushed into a corner. Now, Millman apparently entered the debate in April. He argued that if Wimbledon really wanted to make a difference to Ukraine, maybe it should donate this year's profits to the war effort. What a great suggestion. That really is a great suggestion. But he was challenged by one Ukrainian player who said it was a pretty selfish view. Well, he's launching a broadside at Wimbledon, fair enough, but he's trying to call for unity between the sports bodies. But this bloke, you know, you're gonna get pilloried from all sides, aren't you? And he was expecting to be absolutely murdered on social media, but he's so angered by this unilateral move by Wimbledon that he's pondering that if the tournaments are able to make arbitrary judgments, that as he's getting older, there's probably not going to be many more opportunities for him to play, and he's also worried that he could get banned from playing for even speaking out in the media. But well, why can't he speak out? I mean, surely he can express an opinion as a professional involved in the sport. But he conceded that player reps and tournament reps have made that decision. The ATP Player Council allowed that, and he talked about a whole lot of options on the table, but he did just underline it and finished off by saying that unilateral decisions that exclude players, in his view, it was discrimination. But he did say he loves Wimbledon, and the greatest moment of his life was qualifying for Wimbledon for the first time all those years ago. And those comments there, you can read more of his comments. I'll put a link to this article in the description below. And moving on to the women, the new Australian #1 female tennis player following the retirement of Ash Barty is Ajla Tomiljanovic, and she was very critical of the decision for Wimbledon stripping its rankings points from its tournament, saying it was describing it as very unfair, and saying that she'll be very hard hit, turning that the tournament will effectively become a glorified exhibition event. Now, she reached the Wimbledon quarterfinals last year. She's a naturalised Australian, but because of the ban, now this is where it gets very tricky for the players, that they're going to be really personally impacted by this, because she reached the quarterfinals last year. She cannot defend her rankings points. It was the finest performance of her career, because she beat Britain's US Open champion, well, who turned out to be the US Open champion, Emma Raducanu, at that point, who'd later win the US Open last year, of course. She'd never won so many rankings points at that point, that she achieved a career-high ranking of 38. And as she said, I don't think they'll carry over the points earned from 2021. They'll get wiped. And then you don't have a chance to defend your points. And in my opinion, at 29, that's very unfair. And it's going to be very strange going to Wimbledon and there's no points on offer, she said. But she was a bit phlegmatic with her next comment. Sometimes unfair things happen and you just got to roll with the punches. And that's a great way to look at it, but easier said than done. But she did say that there's no way she will boycott a points-free Wimbledon. She said, of course, she wouldn't miss it for the world. Wimbledon is Wimbledon, and if you win it and you get no points, of course you'll still take it, because let's face it, your name's going up on the honours board, isn't it? So she's definitely going to go into that small bracket of players who are going to be really well affected, but it's out of her control, and she's just got to try to do well regardless, and that's a great attitude. So we'll finish off there. And for the moment, we'll leave you with the sights, sounds, summer of Australia, the Australian Open 2022. Don't go away, we'll be right back. And just a disclaimer again, this episode and all of this series that we're running is apolitical. We're not running commentary on the politics of what's going on in Ukraine, but you can't deny that sport and politics, as much as we like to think that they shouldn't and should never and have no right to cross over, the simple fact of it is that they do and they have, and we can run through any number of situations in the past. The boycott of the 1980 Olympics, I remember that very vividly when that happened. The current situation, the kerfuffle in Saudi Arabia with Greg Norman trumpeting the Saudi Arabian, the new tournament competing with the PGA Tour, which a lot of people are very upset about. You can look to the 2018 World Cup in Russia, the Winter Olympics in Sochi, and would we even go back as far as the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. There's been plenty of times when sport has been the loser in these situations, and there's been plenty of times when sport has been used by those that really have no right to use sport. And in closing, what really comes to mind when it comes to human rights, it would do us all well to think of the Australian sprinter, the silver medalist from the '68 Mexico Olympics, Peter Norman, who simply stood in support of the two black athletes with their Black Power salute, and he got absolutely caned for his support of human rights and supporting fellow athletes. So if there's a line, he stood on it, and he paid the price. And the only thing we can say is that there's no easy answer, black or white, in this world, and at the moment we're in the middle of a whole lot of grey. And the objective of this series was merely to aggregate the commentary and the content going around and put it all into one place and offer it up for your enjoyment, for you to digest, and you be the judge. We're just the platform for putting it all in one place that you can't find anywhere else. And also look out for our other upcoming series coming up after Wimbledon, leading into the US Open. We're going to be looking at the topic of mental health and how professional tennis players down the rankings, how those players on the Challenger and ITF circuits deal with being players travelling around the world looking to rack up rankings points so they can forge their way into the Grand Slams and the challenges they deal with. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You're listening to This Australian Open Life. You can watch us on the internet all over the world from anywhere you are, and we've also got our podcast going, of course, hosted by Acast, but you can find us on Spotify, on all those channels, the names which just escape me. Isn't that hopeless? But you can find us on wisewords.com.au. You can find the podcast and listen from the comfort of your lounge room, your laptop, your mobile, when you're on the train, when you're on the plane, anywhere in the world. This Australian Open Life will be pleased and happy to keep you company. Thanks for joining us on This Australian Open Life. You've been listening to me, the bloke who walks, sometimes known as the bloke who bangs on a bit. We're based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please keep following. Please keep enjoying these episodes and enjoy the tennis. We hope you're having a great time keeping an eye on these elite international tennis players. So that about wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed that very rudimentary summary. I'm not going to pat myself on the back about the quality of this episode. It was really just about bringing together all those names of all those players and just letting you know that that's where things are at, because you know, we live in a digital age, but it's actually sometimes not that easy to find all this information. And the Christmas New Year's break, I mean, who wants to spend all their time looking at endless streams of apps and websites and you know, so let us do all the hard work for you. That's what we're here for. And it's so very much appreciated that we're finding out that from most of the viewers, whether it's by comments or likes or subscriptions, that this Australian Open Life is hitting the mark for you. You've been listening to Bloke Who Walks. This was our Wildcards episode of the Spotlight series. Have a great new year. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you very soon. Bye for now. Based in Melbourne, Australia, this Australian Open Life is produced by Wise Words Media and Calumny Films.